As the internet takes over our lives, so we become more reliant on the security put in place to ensure that what we do is safely guarded. We're talking now to a former hacker who has proved beyond any doubt the vulnerabilities of the internet, even at the highest levels of government security. He's Mustafa al-Bassam, a security advisor at Secure Trading. Welcome. First of all, how vulnerable is the internet that we know it now in 2017?
I think we're incredibly vulnerable. As the years pass, more and more people are using the internet. We have more personal information on the internet and more devices are being connected to the internet with very little regards to how we actually protect that information and those devices. Whether it be nuclear power plants connected to the internet or smart fridges and toasters connected to the internet, I think there's a massive disaster waiting to happen.
Toasters. One would assume that toaster makes toast. Why would that be? One, why is it on the internet? If it is on the internet, how vulnerable does that make us?
Well, people are connecting all kinds of devices to the internet now with the Internet of Things, and many of these devices have very simple vulnerabilities in them that allows hackers to hijack them through an internet connection.
Now, you're a security advisor to Secure Trading. What is your job, and how does this work in the wider picture?
So I advise Secure Trading's clients and as a company on how to protect personal information, specifically credit card information. And as a platform, we are an online payments processor with a specific focus on security, whether that be protecting confidential credit card information or protecting merchants against fraudulent transactions like chargebacks.
Let's pick up on that point on credit cards, because I know that I've been presented here with some research that's been undertaken. It showed that retailers are headed for something like $70-odd billion in e-commerce fraud, which I understand most of it comes through from an association with credit card business. Explain how all this works and what the vulnerabilities are.
So there's many ways that people and hackers could steal credit card information online. The most common way by far is many of these websites are storing credit card information incorrectly, whether it be unencrypted or on systems that have very simple vulnerabilities. And hackers are able to steal that information and use it for fraud. Secondly, some hackers are able to, or fraudsters, create phishing pages to trick customers into typing in their credit card information into legitimate-looking websites.
So what should merchants do then to try and shore this up? Or is it an impossibility? Do you think that the way that the internet's put together makes it almost impossible for merchants to get over this problem?
I think we will always have security issues, but there are definitely ways to mitigate those risks and to almost eliminate them. As a merchant, things that you can do you should be doing things to try and protect that credit card information. Things like encrypting that information and make sure you regularly test the security of the servers that information is being hosted. As Secure Trading, we host that information on behalf of customers securely using payment industry standards, and we provide this feature called tokenization so that the merchant simply has to use a token to access someone's credit card rather than the credit card information itself. So if a hacker hacks into their systems, a useless token will be compromised rather than any sensitive credit card information.
So you're saying that within your operation, your sphere of operation, you protect your clients to the best abilities. That means then there are presumably companies out there that are not having this sort of level of protection. At the same time, cyber criminals are coming up with all sorts of other ways to attack systems. How proactive can you be in your job with your company to try and anticipate the next move for these potential cyber criminals?
Well, I think it's always a bit of a chess game. People make advances on it's a bit of a cat and mouse game, really. People on the offensive side make advances, and then we have to defend against that. And as defenders, we can always try to think a step ahead and use advanced techniques like artificial intelligence or defense in depth to try and predict the next moves and try to prevent any kind of novel attacks.
Well, I think this is an interesting point, this idea of preventative measures, and it's difficult, obviously, as you say, to try and keep ahead of what goes on. Explain a bit more about how artificial intelligence can help here.
So, I mean, it's a fairly new area that's being applied to security research, but some companies have been able to use certain heuristics to detect if certain attacks, if certain transactions are fraudulent, for example, or if certain requests to servers that are being made might be hacking attempts. And so at Secure Trading, for example, we use certain heuristics and machine learning practices to kind of detect if a transaction might be fraudulent or not.
You're using words, I think, here which almost takes us out of common parlance. I think it's very difficult to catch up exactly. But my understanding is what you're saying is that there are new ways which you're looking at all the time. In terms of companies that are not making their environment secure, as a user, as a consumer, is there anything we should be watching out for when logging into sites that we may regularly use to buy goods and services and food and so forth? Is there anything that's obvious for a user to watch out for?
I think it's very difficult on the user end, because in many of these cases, many of these attacks are very difficult to detect on an average user. So for example, phishing sites. There was a recent attack done on Amazon where people who complained about Amazon on Twitter would receive fake links from a scammer saying, Amazon, open this support page, and then the support page would ask them for credit card details. For the average user, it's very difficult to differentiate between a fake website and a real website if the URL looks very similar. So I think this is as much as a problem for people who design these systems as it is for a user. We need to think about how to design user interfaces and engineer systems in such a way that it's not the case that if a user pushes the wrong button, the whole thing blows up in their face.
How do you see this area developing? I know that we've got certain regulations and corporate regulations coming into force, I think, May next year through the EU. Is enough being done, do you think, by governments and authorities to try and insist that companies shore up their defences here?
I mean, I think some countries are doing better than others. In the UK, we have the National Cybersecurity Centre, which was recently launched to try and advise businesses on cybersecurity. But I think at the end of the day, I don't think we should be looking to governments or authorities necessarily for these things. I think we need to be proactive and vigilant ourselves as an industry and as individuals and as governments, and to all collectively try and make ourselves more secure.
Yeah, okay, well let's hope that happens. But in the meantime, thanks indeed for joining us. Mustafa al-Bassam, a security advisor at Secured Trading, there with us, just identifying some of the vulnerabilities that still exist, very much exist, across the internet that we use now in 2017.